Hi everyone, I'm Jacy from Craft Life, and I'm here today to teach you how to knit fingerless gloves on your rainbow loom. I've had so many requests to make this tutorial, so the supplies you'll need to make it are your rainbow loom or a knitting loom. And on your knitting loom, you have longer pegs to fit thicker yarn, and on your rainbow loom, you have smaller pegs, and I prefer to use thinner yarn. And as you can see, I'm wearing different gloves because I wanted to show you the difference in yarn. So on this one, I used a thinner yarn. This is the brand, and it was Bulky 5. And you can see my skin, and the stitches are very loose. And on this one, I used a thicker yarn, and you can't see my skin that much. And it is Super Bulky 6, and this is the brand. And you can use whatever yarn you'd like, but I prefer to use thin yarn on your rainbow loom. You will also need a rainbow loom hook or a knitting hook, and I prefer a knitting hook because it has a longer tip for bringing your bottom loops over the top with yarn. And you will also need scissors. So please get your supplies, and we're ready to begin. Now I'm going to show you how to set up your loom. So you're going to start by taking out your middle row. You're going to turn this row around so that its arrows point to the left. And this all depends on if you're a righty or lefty. So if you're a righty, you're going to have your arrows on this row pointing to the right. And if you're a lefty, you're going to have your arrows on this row pointing to the left. Then you can push this down and then take out your big blue piece. Now we're ready to begin making our fingerless glove. So you're going to make a slip knot on the very end. So you're going to put it on these two fingers and wrap it around like this. Then this is how I like to do it. I'm going to stick it in that loop from the bottom like that. And you're not going to pull tight right now because you want to put it on your loom first. So find a peg. You're going to start on this one. And then you can pull it tight. Like that. And then you're just going to make an E-wrap, which is you put it on this side of the peg and wrap it around. Wrap it around. Wrap it around. And keep going. You're going to count to make sure you have 7 pegs already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I can undo one. Then you're going to come to this peg next to it. Then wrap it this way. And if you are using your knitting loom, you can follow these steps exactly the same way and just go around your knitting loom instead of your rainbow loom. Then you're just going to come back on this peg and E-wrap again. Then come to this peg, turn your loom with your yarn, and come down this row. Now, on this peg, you're just going to hold it and take either your knitting hook or your rainbow loom hook, and you're going to take your bottom loop over the top on that peg. So pull it. And I forgot to mention that you don't want to pull your loops too tight or too loose, because if you pull them too tight, it's going to be too hard to bring over the top. And on this one, you can let go now because you brought the bottom loop over the top, and it's going to hold your yarn, and then you're going to continue taking your bottom loop over the top. And this is the part where it gets hard with thick yarn because with thin yarn you can see the space between the two loops. And with thick yarn you can't see it and you're grabbing all of the loops by accident. So that's why I like to use thin yarn on my rainbow loom. Now turn it around this way. Now push them all down. And this was considered our first row. And now we're going to make our second row. So starting from the peg where you left off, you're going to wrap around that peg. So E-wrap around that same peg. Then go to the peg next to it. And then you're going to come back down. And remember to not wrap too tight. Now, you're just going to hold your yarn on this peg. Bring your bottom loop over the top. Then you can let go and push it down. Now you're going to go all the way around your loom. Now make sure they're all pushed down. And you just finished making your second row. And now we're going to make our third row. So now that we got to this peg, we do not want to wrap it around again. We're just going to go to your next peg, wrap it around, and go around. And don't wrap too tight. Now once you get back to the peg you started on, you're going to bring your bottom loop over the top. And then you can let go of your yarn and continue to take the bottom loop over the top on all of them. Now we're going to do the same thing. Don't start on this peg, but you're going to go to the peg next to it and do an E-wrap. Don't pull too tight. Now, back on this peg, you're going to take your bottom loop over the top, and then you can let go of your yarn and do the rest of them. Now push them down, and you've just finished doing your 4th row, and you want to have 12 rows in total before you hook off for your thumb. So you're going to do 8 more rows of E-wrapping around your loom, and then bringing your bottom loops over the top. If you have trouble, you can always rewind this video and watch it over again. I just wanted to tell you that for your next 8 rows, you're going to start on this peg, like this, and you're going to end on this peg. So please finish your 8 more rows and I'll be right back. I just finished my 8 more rows and now I'm ready to hook off for the thumb. So you're going to start on this peg, and I know I told you before not to hook this one or start on this one, but now you're going to. So you're just going to wrap around that peg like that and the peg next to it. Then hold your yarn. You're going to bring the bottom loop over the top on both of these. Then what you're going to do is take this loop from this peg. You're going to bring it over to this peg. Pull it tight, not too tight. Then you're going to bring the bottom loop over the top and bring this loop back to its peg. And you can always do it with your fingers if it's easier. Now we're going to do this one. You're going to wrap it around that peg. Bring the bottom loop over the top. Then you're going to bring this loop to this peg. Pull it tight, not too tight. Then you're going to bring the bottom loop over the top. And then you're going to bring this loop back to its peg. And you're going to go to your next peg. You're going to E-wrap it. Then bring the bottom loop over the top. Then bring this loop to this peg. And bring the bottom loop over the top. And bring this loop back to its peg. Now you should be able to count 4 empty pegs, so we have to do one more time. So you're going to E-wrap this peg, bring the bottom loop over the top, bring this loop to the peg behind it, and bring the bottom loop over the top, and bring it back to its peg. Now we've just finished hooking off the thumb, and we're going to go all the way around our loom. So starting on this peg, not this one, but this one, you're going to E-wrap all the way around your loom. Even on the empty 4 pegs, you're going to E-wrap. So we're going to E-wrap this one, this empty one, and this empty one, and then go back to the peg that you started on. Now, I know that you don't have 2 loops on your empty pegs, but you're just going to skip them this time. And you're going to bring the bottom loop over the top on all the pegs that do have 2 loops. And don't worry if your loops are loose. You just want your fingerless glove to be loose. Now we're going to go all the way around our loom again. You're not going to start on this peg, you're going to start on this one. And go all the way around. But make sure your bottom loops are pushed down first. Now you're going to hold your yarn. You're going to grab the bottom loop over the top on all of your pegs. Now you're going to go all the way around your loom again, and you're going to always start on this one, but never start on this one. This is going to be the one that you stop on. So start on this one and go around. And stop on this one, your third peg. Now you're going to bring the bottom loop over the top on this peg, and then you're going to go around and do the rest. Now we have just done 3 rows since we cut off for the thumb, and you want to have 8 rows in total. So you're going to continue the pattern of starting on this peg and E-wrapping all the way around until you get back to this one. Then bring your bottom loops over the top, push it down, and keep continuing this for 5 more rows, and I'll be right back. I just finished my 5 more rows, and I'm ready to end it, and I hope you are too. So, to end it, you're going to start on the peg that you're on. You're going to E-wrap that peg and the peg next to it. Then you're going to bring the bottom loop over the top on both of those 2 pegs. Now, you're going to bring this loop to the peg behind it, And I like to do it with my fingers. Don't pull this loop way too tight, but pull it tight enough so that it won't fall off your peg. Then bring that loop over the top and bring it back to its peg. And the more tight you pull this loop, the more tight the top of your fingerless glove will be. So you're going to E-wrap your next peg, bring the bottom loop over the top, then bring this loop to the peg behind it, bring the bottom loop over the top, and bring this loop back to its peg. Just try not to make your stitching at the top too tight. Then you're going to E-wrap your next peg, bring the bottom loop over the top, bring it back to the peg behind it, and take the bottom loop over the top. Then don't pull it way too tight and bring it to the peg in front of it. E-wrap your next peg, bring the bottom loop over the top, bring it to the peg behind it, pull it but not too tight, then bring the bottom loop over the top, bring it to the peg next to it. Now you're going to E-wrap to the peg next to it, bring the bottom loop over the top on that peg, and you're going to bring this loop to this peg, bring the bottom loop over the top, and bring it back to its peg. So this is pretty much what you're doing if you don't understand. You're going to E-wrap the peg next to it, bring your bottom loop over the top, bring this loop to the peg behind it. Don't pull the loop too tight because you want it to be a little bit loose on the top of your fingerless glove. Then bring the bottom loop over the top and bring this loop back to its peg. And you're just going to continue it all the way around. And please remember that you're not going to want to pull it tight. Each loop that you do around each peg, you want to make sure that it's as loose as possible without falling off the peg. Like when I wrap this around, I don't want it to be tight at all. I'm going to bring the bottom loop over the top, and then I'm going to pull this so it's even more loose. I'm going to sit it on that peg, bring the bottom loop over the top, and with that loose loop, I'm going to bring it back to its peg. Still loose. Just keep doing that. Now on your last one, you're just going to pull a lot to take it off your loom. You want to pull through the top. So now you're left with your yarn and a loop. And what you're going to do is cut your yarn like that. Then you're going to stick your excess into that loop so that you pull everything tight. And now you need to connect this side and this side. So what you're going to do is take your rainbow loom hook. We're going to stick it through one of these loops. Stick it through that one, right there. And then you're going to wrap your yarn around it and hold it as you pull it through so it doesn't come off. And then pull it through that. And then on this side, you're going to do the same thing. Stick it through the loop on this side. Grab it from the back. Pull it through. Like that. And now they're sewed together. Now with this loop, you can either weave it in or tie it and cut it off. This is a way to end it. So you can take this loop, you're just going to open up the loop next to it, so you see that hole. We're going to stick our yarn through that hole, just like that. And when you pull it tight, it instantly creates a knot. Like that. Now what you're going to do is cut it very short. And you're just going to weave the excess in. So just push it through the back, through some loops. Then push it through the front, through some loops. And push it through the back again. And now it's woven in. And your top is good. Now for the bottom, it's already in a knot, so you're just going to cut it short. And then you're just going to weave it in. Push it through some loops. Then push it through some loops. And push it through the back. And you want both of your extra ends to be in the inside of your fingerless glove. And then they're ready to wear. This is what they look like when they're done and on. And yes, you will need to make another one the exact same way because it does fit both hands. And I hope you enjoyed making fingerless gloves on the rainbow loom. And if you make some, I'd love to see them. My Instagram is CraftLifeUSA, so please tag me in a photo. And don't forget to like us on Facebook, pin it on Pinterest, and subscribe right here on YouTube. I hope you live a craft life just like me. Thanks for watching. Bye!